What's up guys, it's Ross with Drop In BMX and Skate Shop, and as you saw, I got a flat. Perfect time to do a how-to, and today I'm going to show you how to change your tube. Alright guys, so I got a couple of the tools that I need to get this done. Depending on your back wheel and the type of back hub that you'll have, you may need a 17mm socket with an extension if you run pegs, or if you have the female axles like I do on this Profile Mini, it may be an 8mm Allen, but nonetheless you're going to have to take your wheel off to do this. So you get your wheel off first, and you're going to use your tire levers, a fresh tube, and we'll be basically ready to pump that tube up and get you rolling again. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and get into the process of actually changing the tube. So like I said, step one is going to be taking this wheel off. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the bolts. If it's the back wheel, which is the one that gets popped more commonly, you're going to have to get your chain off. Try not to chop your finger off while doing that. If you run chain tensioners, you may have to loosen them up to get enough slack in your chain to get it off of the sprocket and the driver. Mine were pretty tight, so I'm loosening those up. That'll allow me to push the wheel forward and get the chain off of the sprocket right now. Like so. My wheel just fell right out. Okay. So now you're going to take off the valve cap. I like to start by pulling the wall of the tire over right near the valve cap. Sometimes you can get it going with your hands. Other times you may, depending on what tire you're running, you may need a tire lever to get that sidewall over the rim. I was actually able to do it by hand, so some of them are easier than others. And basically, once you got your wheel off, you're going to pull that valve out. Here's my old tube right here. So I'm going to take this out, and one thing that's always a good idea to do is check your tube to see where it went wrong and how it went flat. Alright, so one thing that's important to figure out is how your tube went flat. If it has two slits in the tube like next to each other, then you know that's a pinch flat, and that could be caused by casing a jump or hitting a curb or not having enough PSI and just that rim just kind of puncturing it, causing the pinch flat. Right now I noticed my tube had one good sized hole in it, so it tells me that it was punctured by something. So I need to check my tire to see if I either rolled over something or if there's something on the inside of my rim that may need to be taken out, like a little pebble or something, because if not, your new tube's going to get flat right away as well. But here's what I'm talking about. So pretty good size hole there, and that's no good. Even if I tried to pump that back up, that's not going to work. So I'm going to check inside my tire, make sure there's nothing in there before we go back with a fresh tube. Definitely the easiest way for this is to take your tire all the way off. You want to look in there, make sure there's nothing, you know, it could be something as little as a thorn or a rock or whatever, but right away I'm checking to make sure there's nothing left on the inside of my tire that's going to cause the next one to get flat. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a new tube, drop that next one in, and we'll get rolling. Alright, so I got my fresh tube here. Took the valve cap off. I'm going to put the valve stem in the rim, kind of wrap it around. It's always a good little tip to mention that you want to look at your tire and how it is in regards to your other tire before you put it back on the bike, because if one's backwards and you don't have the tread right, people might call you out. It might look kind of stupid. Put your tire on the right way the first time. It makes things much easier. So now that my rim's on the inside of the wall of the tire, I'm just tucking the tube in on all sides. And you want to make sure that your tube doesn't fold up. You want it to just smoothly go around the tire like, you know, a perfect circle ideally. And you'll notice it starts to get a little tight when you go to put that sidewall back on the inside of the rim. You also want to make sure that your sidewall of your tire isn't pinching your tube against the rim, because that could cause it to basically egg up when you go to put a bunch of tire pressure in. So normally you can get One side of the wall of the tire inside the rim, relatively easy. I did that with my hands. But then when you go to do the second one, you'll have probably an area about like this where it's going to be a little snug, might be a little hard. This is where your tire levers will come into play and definitely make your life easier. So get it as much as you can by hand as far as getting the sidewall inside the rim. And then when it starts to get tight, you want to use your tire lever like that, set one in there against the sidewall and try to hold it in place. And then you want to go kind of close to it, take a little bite and just pull it over. Might take a little muscle, but you can kind of work them in toward each other to get it on the other side. Boom. So now the tire's back on the inside of the rim. Our tube is in there. Kind of roll it out to make sure everything's smooth and the tube isn't twisted. And I'm riding brakeless, so I can go ahead and put all my air pressure back in it. If you are running brakes, you'll have to put it in flat and then set your wheel inside the brake pads before you inflate the tire again. So going back on, you want to make sure you put the chain on the driver first. Open up the opposite side bolt, slide it right back in place. It's a good idea to put your chain on the sprocket so know that you have the spacing good, that you'll have good chain tension when you go back to riding. Again, I'm double checking the tread direction of my tire to make sure that it's facing forward and I didn't put my tire on backwards. And it's important that you have your wheel centered in the frame and also pull against it to get that good chain tension when you're putting your wheel back on. All right, so I have my wheel in position. Now I just gotta pump it up and I'm pretty much good to ride. It's also important to keep in mind that different tires will have a different max PSI. I would say you always want to have above 40 PSI no matter what, just to protect your rim and not have your tire feel like completely soft, like a bread ball or a piece of Play-Doh. That's no good. And like I said, you will get more pinch flats. I like to typically have my tires at about 60 PSI, 65. That'll keep you rolling fast and still kind of allow for some give to give you some cushion. I know a lot of people like to ride 80, 90 PSI. Which is cool. I mean, at the end of the day, your bike is kind of a little bit about personal preference, and I just like to ride around the 60 to 70, 65 PSI range. All right, so I got my tire to the proper PSI, put my valve cap back on. Now we're ready to go shred. All right, guys, I know that for those of you who have been riding your whole lives and been in a BMX a while, that's like a super basic, easy video, but if you're just getting into it or you hadn't changed a tire on your own before, I hope you learned something today. We're going to do another video next Tuesday, so check back with the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.